In today's episode, I am talking to Helen Hill all about how and why she reluctantly stepped into and embraced the entrepreneur label. Helen had always been really against being called this, and in this episode we chat about why and what made her make the change earlier this year. So let me tell you a little bit more about who Helen is and what she does. Helen is a creative addict behind Unlikely Genius and one half of the mermaid double act Be The Future. She is on a mission to reconnect the world to the creativity and joy in education and work. She loves nothing more than to help kids and grown-ups rediscover mischief and playfulness to generate new ideas and get excited about what they do. At Unlikely Genius, she is an all-round creative, providing writing, design and illustration with a focus on educational resources and book illustration. As a lifetime hoarder of children's books for her own reading pleasure, she has recently launched herself as a children's book author illustrator. Plus, she is an ICF ACC accredited business coach and author of triple award-winning Falling Off the Ladder. We're not a 40-year-old playing dress-up or grappling to work out the time difference with co-founder Sally in Australia. At Be The Future, Helen's focus is on developing educational and technological content for immersive and educational experiences about sustainability. So before we dive in, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to Show Up and Be Heard again this week. The podcast exists to help women like you simplify your business and your life so that you can stop feeling so overwhelmed. I'm your host, Becky McAvoy, owner and founder of Be Heard Socials, and I'm an award-winning social media marketer and international speaker who specialises in content strategy and organic growth on social media. If you want to cut through the noise and BS and get practical, actionable advice tailored specifically to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand, or if you want to be part of a supportive community where women entrepreneurs can feel connected and inspired to achieve their dreams, then keep listening because you are in the right place. To be the first to find out when new episodes go live and get more tips like the ones you hear in this podcast, make sure you join my email community through the link in the show notes. Whether you have followed me for a while or you are brand new here, I am so grateful for you. Right then, let's get started with this week's episode. Hi, Helen. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
You are very, very welcome. I'm really looking forward to having a chat to you today. We're going to chat a little bit about entrepreneur lifestyle and just the word entrepreneur in general, I guess, which is quite exciting. But before we get into any of that, one of the questions I like to ask first, the listeners will have heard like a little bit just now about your bio, but I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about your sort of story, like how you came to be in business. Did you always want to be a business owner? Yeah, just a little bit about your story. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, mine was one of a kind of accident, really. So I'd done lots of bits of graphic design on the side of full-time work for about 10 years, but I'm talking like, 40 quid for a logo kind of work. And it was actually my other half's cousin that then started doing some web design, and we started pairing up a bit more and it got it going a little bit more. But yeah, when I had a very rough time in employment, I basically quit with nowhere to go. Was certainly not planning on turning the business into a full-time thing, but 2 days later got offered a contract. Didn't even know what contracting was and how that was different to freelancing. Got the job on the spot, and that was that. I just remember starting on this contract and walking through the office because it was kind of on premises, even though I was self-employed, and thinking, I like this. And yeah, I never went back. That was kind of a year before COVID hit, and with being in e-learning, it was a really booming industry in COVID because obviously everyone had to get online, and yeah, it just really took it off. So it was entirely by accident. It ended up a full-time job, and certainly that I now have 3 businesses was an accident.
That's incredible. I love that though. And it sounds very similar to mine, to be fair. I left my job without another job to go to in what I thought was a bit of a mad moment of madness. But some of the best things happen from it, don't they? Like you said, like, I think I speak to so many business owners where businesses happen by accident. Then the fact that you're still here like 5 years later is 4 or 5 years later. I know I'm coming up to 5
nearly
years.
6 now, yeah.
Was it 6?
Yeah, nearly, yeah.
My business started about 6 months before the pandemic, and it's 6 months in 6 months. 5. God, I've lost track completely. 5.
Oh well, that's
August. It's a long time.
It was 2018, that I started. So yeah.
Which is incredible, isn't it? For something to happen by accident and then to still be here 6 years later.
Yeah.
That's
And the funny
amazing.
thing was, when I was having a rough time in employment, a few people said to me, why don't you work for yourself? And I was like, oh, no, I don't have the confidence. I'm not good enough. And I was never been a business person, with the whole stuff behind the scenes and the managing finances and all that. So I just thought, oh, no, I can't do that. So yeah, I totally surprised myself, really.
It's really funny though, isn't it? Because I remember someone saying to me when I left my job, and I'd been a stay-at-home mum for about 6 months, and I was like, right, I need to do something just to make up the money. It wasn't even that I wanted to start a business, but like, let's, like we need to make up the money a little bit. And I was looking at all these things, and somebody said to me, "Oh, you're quite good with social media, though. Like, what?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can't make a job out of that. Like,
Yeah.
you can't have a business out of that." And you don't realise how many transferable skills you've got that, like monetize basically and turn into businesses, do you?
And I'd had a very squiggly career where I'd been in graphics, I'd been a lecturer, I'd worked in primary, I'd worked in secondary, developing literacy and e-learning. I'm a book addict. And it was funny that all these skills kind of suddenly came together. So, like in the e-learning world, most people either write, design, or build. I did all three. And that became a really big selling point in the business because they didn't have to hire 3 freelancers. They just got me. And, that's still the deal to this day, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was a real thing of thinking, well, what do I even do? I don't even know where my skill is, really. And then it was like, oh, it's in all of them together.
And sometimes, I don't know if you find this, but even now, I suddenly realise things that, I don't know, I've done in my previous, like, employed life or whatever, that I'm like, oh, I could do that in, actually. I can do,
Yeah.
something with that. So yeah, I love that. Like, sometimes it is just like making a note, isn't it, of the skills and stuff that you've got and going and working from there.
And I think what a big thing with me, I think, was having the courage to combine things and just go, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. And I'm going to, even sewing, I took up in October. And now that's become part of my job, like in creating props for the second business, Be The Future. And I've just applied for a freelance job to decorate a grand piano in a country manor around here for one of these piano trail things and stuff like that. And I'm like, how's that become my job? But I love that. I love that it has.
Isn't it though? Awesome.
Yeah.
And I just think you can just try these different things, can't you? I was just thinking about, I had a chat recently with Sophie from the Creative Incubator, who's in a community we're both in being freelance. And she was saying about her lino printing business, and she's just sort of getting into that to do different things. But actually she was like, but I can pick that up whenever I want. So I think it's incredible, isn't it? When you meet a business owner, like even outside of the business they do, the amount of skills they've got just from previous lives and whatever, that, like you said, you can do so much with.
And there's a real conversation about, like, don't make your hobbies your job, because then they become less fun. But actually, I'm like, it depends on the business.
Yeah.
Because when I'm doing stuff to play with kids and creating life-size games and all of that, and I can bring them skills in, actually, it's really good fun. And it means I get to do more of my hobby.
Yeah.
And it stops me getting bored. So, I mean, I'm here at STEMfest, like today, just setting up, like I was telling you before. And, I'm going to be creating a massive 3D city of the future with the kids, where they're going to take on different job roles and add nature and add like road networks and all sorts, because it's just like, that's what they need, and it's what I want to do.
100%. And it's a thing like that, isn't it, with advice like that, which is a typical social media piece of advice, where it's like, don't monetize your hobbies, or don't, bring things into work or whatever. But there isn't a one size fits all, is there? It's like you said, like some people won't want to do that, and that's absolutely fine. But equally, like you said, it depends on the business. It depends on the person. It depends what the hobby is, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been combining the physical crafty skills with like the 3D augmented reality and all of that, because we're doing a bit of that as well tomorrow, and planting trees then around the city they're building. And that's if I can get the tech working, which is failing at the moment. But it's, that brain of mine that loves all these really random, diverse things, to have finally brought it together. And I get to, like, my other half came upstairs the other day and said, "What are you doing?" And I was tickling a panda's belly that was sat in the doorway of my office. And it was like, "You and your toys." I was like, "This is work." Like, leave off. But that's great to be able to do that.
I love that though. With I say that to my kids sometimes when they're like, "You're always on your phone." I'm working. So
Yeah.
social media. But you're right. Like it is. There's so many different things, isn't there, to bring into work, and
Oh, yeah.
things that you enjoy, which is
Yeah.
amazing. I'm
Yeah.
working on some new services at the moment that sort of like they're still related to social media, but come a little bit out of that. Because it's just stuff that I'm really good at that I know can help
Mm.
people in business. And yeah, like it's the real bonus of working for yourself, isn't it? Um there's no, I can't think of the word, but like ceiling on what you can do, or you're not restricted
Mm.
to certain things, are you? If you want to try and do something, you can try and do it.
Yeah, and I think it's then having that confidence, isn't it, to actually tell people about it. And that's what I
Yeah,
didn't do for a long time. And now when people see what we're doing, and
yeah,
like this, 10-foot textile tree I created and sent to Sydney for my co-founder to use in the children's workshops, even the adults are playing with it because they're just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Never
yeah,
seen anything like this. And it's like, well, I don't even know where the idea came from, but I just had all this material and thought, yeah, I'll give it a bash. And it's because all the leaves are magnetised, so you can build the tree yourself and then add the
yeah,
animals, the koalas and stuff. And to kind of bring that in and capture even adults as well as the kids, I think it's been a real eye opener of like, oh gosh, no, this is needed. No one's done it before. That doesn't mean
yeah,
it's not wanted.
yeah.
So yeah, it's finding the right people, but
Yeah, and the confidence to, like you said, to talk about it, but sometimes as well, it's the confidence to just do it and know that if it doesn't work, actually, like that's a success, isn't it? Because you've tried it. I think a lot of people, and I know that I've been guilty of it in the past. You're like, oh no, I'm not sure if I can do that. No, I'm not going to try that.
yeah,
And actually, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like with this new service I'm developing, put it out there. Like I know that there's a need for it because people have spoken to me about it.
yeah,
Put it out there, no one buys it, and it's like, okay, well, like I'll try a new thing. So it's the confidence to speak about it, but also the confidence to just try, isn't it? Which I think
yeah.
is the whole thing about having a business, is literally having the confidence to try and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't panic.
Yeah.
Like I said, none of the tech's working for tomorrow. I'm just like, you know what? Right, okay. I'll go and nab some boxes from somewhere. We'll do this 3D city instead. We're gonna
Yes.
right. Just adapt. But I suppose that's the ex-teacher in me that's like, okay, that didn't work. What do we do instead? You keep
Yeah.
yourself amused for a minute.
I wonder if I used to work, I was a teacher, but I used to work in education. There's probably an element of that for me, but
Yeah.
also just being a mum. I'm like, well, I'm
Yeah.
constantly trying things that don't work. So
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
got
And
to build the resilience as a parent,
just
haven't
because it doesn't work today doesn't mean it won't tomorrow is the other thing, isn't it? It's
you?
like,
Exactly. I love that.
yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
when you started out in business, I know we were going to talk about the sort of entrepreneur label a little bit, but did
Mm.
you call yourself anything? Because I don't think I did. I think,
I just always said either I work for myself or freelance. I mean, the first role I was in, because they labelled me a contractor, that kind of just gave me a thing to go with at first.
yeah,
But then, yeah, I did 10 months of that contract and then ended up very much as sort of working through a recruitment company for e-learning companies, where they told me again, like, oh, you're a freelance digital creative or whatever, or an e-learning specialist, and every one of them's called me a different name. I mean, I work for one company now that they've just renewed me for a third year. I can't remember what they call me. I just, whenever I'm there, I'm just like, yeah, I'm just the digital learning person, whatever. But so it kind of differs depending on the clients, and I think I've kind of liked that, because it also means that I'm not labelled as something too specific,
yeah,
which suits me, because I
yeah, yeah.
do quite a random, and I quite often make my own job titles up. And it is only since January this year that I've had to accept that I've had to call myself an entrepreneur. So that's been the real, don't want to do that. But
Was there reasons that you were reluctant to call yourself that?
I think certainly when I first started in business and I just had the one business, I didn't really associate that with being what an entrepreneur is. I'd considered that entrepreneurs were these people that have multiple businesses doing really innovative things, earning a lot of money, all those things that I was like, no, I'm just plodding around doing my own thing. But then, yeah, obviously we started Be The Future. I mean, that's nearly 4 years ago now. We've done, 3.5 years of development and things. But now that's kind of taking off, and that's become two businesses, because there's the one in Australia, the one in the UK. And I ended up on a program called Innovative Entrepreneurs, an accelerator. So I was like, okay, right, I'm going to have to do this now, Anna. I'm going to have to refer to myself. And funnily enough, in the first session they had with us, they were like, you are all entrepreneurs. And we were all like, ah. Apart from one or two, we were like, yeah. The rest of us were like, are we? Are we? They were like, you know, you're doing an innovative thing. You're coming up with these businesses that are really pushing on an industry or whatever, creating new products. So at that point, I was like, oh yeah, actually, with what we're doing with Be The Future is definitely that. And then, yeah, with the route it's going to go in the UK, it's all very exciting changes at the moment and developments, but that's certainly innovative. So yeah, I've had to kind of just accept that I am one. I still feel awkward saying it.
Yeah.
But
I suppose the more you say it out loud, it's one of those things, isn't it? Like the confidence comes with sort of the more you say it. I'm thinking about it when you were just talking. I was like, I don't actually know whether I've ever looked up a definition of any of the words, like even like freelancer, entrepreneur, etc. Like I know roughly what they all mean, but it's interesting, isn't it, when you go and look at official definitions of stuff. Would you say? So is that how you still define an entrepreneur, as somebody who has multiple businesses, or is it more about the innovation side? What do you think?
It's more about the innovation side now. I don't think you have to have multiple businesses, definitely not. And there's quite a few people in the program that are showing that, you know, alone. And I've very heavily become Be The Future focused anyway at the moment. So no, I think you can do it with one business, but it is about that thing of how are you moving something forward? How are you changing things, thinking in a different way, putting something new out there? It's not just about, I want to be an influencer. It's not, like the thing that really drove me mad was the whole mumpreneur, solopreneur. And in fact, someone did point out to me a couple of months ago on my book, Falling Off the Ladder, the last line on the blurb at the back is "no preneuring in sight." And I was like, oh, right, okay. Well, I did write that 3 years ago. It's okay. But yeah, I think, you know, when these people say, oh, well, I'm an entrepreneur, and they're just a business owner. And that's not a just as in you're only one. It's just that, being an entrepreneur is a slightly different elevated sidestep. I don't know. But it's not just having a business. Yeah.
So how do you class in that then, the innovation and driving stuff forward? Do you mean in terms of like creating change, or like the topic? Because you could argue, I guess, lots of business owners drive things forward. What for you is like the real difference between the two terms?
I think the point where I accepted I am one was that, you know, we're doing this climate education. We've done this pilot in schools where we're already doing it a little bit differently. We're doing it very interactive. We're doing solutions focused. We're doing it differently to all the other people out there that are doing doom and gloom. We're very positive, happy, fun focused. And then in the UK now, I've actually just won funding to do it with immersive technology and things. So we're moving it that step on again. And I think it's that continual process of reflect, develop, make it even better, really pushing it, that instead of just going, oh, well, this works, and sticking with the status quo, which is what I do with the other business. I just crack on with the e-learning, you know, and then add 27 other services every now and again. But, you know, it's just, that's plods along. Whereas, we're going big. We're going big now. I'm going to be going for big funding by the end of the year. So,
which is amazing. That's really, really exciting.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I love that. And I was, to be fair, probably for different reasons, but the mumpreneur label irritates the life out of me. But that's more, I think for me, that's probably more a bit of a feminist rant of just like, I am a mum, but I don't have to attach that to every single thing I do. And I am doing, you know, a lot of what I do is for my kids. And the reason I'm in business is for my kids. But like, I am a person outside of being a mum, and it like, because you don't have dadpreneurs, do you? You know, like it's and that drives me up.
No. And it is still a very misogynist industry, the entrepreneur world. I've really discovered that in the last few weeks, actually, never mind few months. It's still heavily male. There's still really attitudes that I've had a few arguments about, you know, and comments, and Yeah, it's a shame, but there's people out there also that are doing incredible stuff to help the women step forward. So
Yeah,
I do appreciate that whole thing of like really celebrating the women doing it. I think it's just those labels and those names, these like merges of, I've never been keen on all that stuff.
yeah,
And they're the type of things that the people jump on that are just either go about it in a different way to me, like, you know, the confidence, the arrogance, whereas I'm just like cracking on behind the scenes and just trying to make change.
yeah,
I'm not there to be like this shiny thing on
yeah,
Insta or whatever, even though I've been on TV, but I was
yeah.
dressed as a mermaid.
I was just going to say, there's a story about you being dressed as a mermaid, isn't there? Do you want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a year ago now that we did it, and it did lead to a year-long tour. So we dressed as 13-foot-long reclaimed plastic mermaids on World Ocean Day, and I ended up on BBC News, and Sally was on Network 10 from Bondi Beach because she got the glamorous end of the deal. And yeah, it just took off. We reached over 25 million people with that PR stunt, and we started getting requests for, can you come to this event? Can you do workshops? Can you do it? And we were like, yeah, adapted, pulled our Kickstarter that we were actually launching. And that's led to where we are today. That, like I say, we just went into this model of develop, and it's become this huge thing that I've just won funding for. So it's been done incredible things for the business.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
And I love that it's all come from dressing as a mermaid. I've got a
I
friend
know.
who loves to swim as a mermaid, and she does it quite
Yeah,
regularly just as a hobby. And we were talking the other day, in my membership we have a virtual Ribena every month, and it's just, you know, like a catch-up chat. It's a bit of a social. I don't drink tea and coffee, which is why it's a virtual
yeah,
Ribena.
I like
But
that.
there's always a question, it's a sort of like an icebreaker question, which I know can be a little
Yeah,
bit cringy, but because the community knows each other really well, it's really nice. And last week the question was, if you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? And it generated so much fascinating conversation. But she
yeah,
spoke about she'd be able to swim underwater, like just constantly
yeah.
be above land underwater, because she
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
loves all that.
Yeah, just breathe under there and swim with the whales, and oh, that'd be my dream. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so just back to the entrepreneur stuff. Do you think, so you said it
Mm,
was like the start of this year that you sort of
mm.
really started to embrace that. Do you think, has it like, has it made a difference in any way? Like, has it changed your mindset? Has it changed how you, not necessarily changed how you work, but do you think it matters what you call yourself?
I would have said no last year, but actually, I think with the step the business needed to go in, I think it has hugely helped. And it has helped that I've been on an accelerator program that have helped me with all this. And because I was always the creative, the ideas person, I was never the planner, the, you know, business plan and all that. Didn't even know never done one of them in my life, you know, and it's made me do all that side. And actually, I've got
Yeah,
really into it now. And it's made me really appreciate exactly how and what you need to do to get the scale of business that we now need to approach, even just the way you have to talk to investors, all that kind of thing. But I think it has switched something in my head because I've also had to step into different networks. I was very much surrounded by freelancers before, and I've had to go into these entrepreneur networks and communities now. And, you know, I've been talking to like millionaires and all this about finance. And great story that I accidentally ended up at a millionaire's meal in a solicitor's office the other week. Thought I'd registered for it. They said I wasn't on the list, let me in anyway. And I'm sat there with all. Apparently, I should have been an £8 million business to be there. I was like, oh, I've got about 80 quid in the bank. Right, okay. Never mind. But yeah, I think it has helped me, I think, step into certain situations feeling a bit different and a bit more confident than
yeah,
just, oh, I'm just this designer, I'm just doing a bit of e-learning. It's been, no, I do own multiple businesses. I'm a creative, I do this, and I know how to handle it a bit more now, I think, but
yeah,
I couldn't have done it last year.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just owning that, I suppose, isn't it? Like, and just maybe it's for the
Yeah.
confidence side of it.
Yeah. And I think just that framing, it's not so much about having a label, but it's about stepping into that thing of like, right, this is how I need to be, this is how I need to speak in these and all these things now, and how I need to approach people. And, you know, I'm contacting huge organizations and stuff at the moment. So I have to kind of have that elevated thing above just I'm a small business or I'm a freelancer. I need to be
Yeah,
presenting as a bigger
yeah.
body, even though there's still only two of us in the business. But, you know,
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I don't think I've ever really thought about what to call myself. Like I said, not for the, like, in a lot of ways it would be freelancer, but there's something about, but even with freelancing, because I'm moving away from, there was something around the definition of freelancing where it's like, people will give you work to do, etc. And I'm moving away from all of that and not doing that side of it, whether it's just business owner. And it's just interesting chatting to you, because there's a bit of me that's like, well, it doesn't really matter what I'm calling myself, but maybe I do need to have a think about just where I fit and what I do. Because I think, so you touched on briefly there, like you've joined different networks, but like it does help you get into the right communities and stuff, doesn't it? Do you, like, what have you found about the networks, like how you went about finding them, and like, have you found the right ones, or did it take some trial and error to know which ones to go into?
Yeah, so it has been a real kind of change, and I think I found quite a few through things like LinkedIn and what have you. And to be honest, like the accelerator we're on, there's 22 of us, I think it is. So like we all had different knowledge of different networks and all that kind of thing. So we very much shared all of that. Very much like LinkedIn, and things like, I went to Female Founders Raise. They had a network event in Leeds and stuff like that. So it's turning up to these kind of co-working hubs, that kind of thing, where people base themselves. Went to a couple of things like Lean In Ladies, Lean In Leeds. And they, all these people then tell you about others and things they've been to. So it just quickly kind of grows and evolves. And it was, I think it's just been a lot of talking to people. That's been the real thing for me, I think, this last year, realising that to turn up to events in person just leads to so much more than constantly trying to chase things on things like maybe LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever, because you're working just within the network you already have a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I needed to get a bit wider than that. So it was just keeping my eyes open, turning up to some things. Turned up to one where I had no voice and I had to just croak at people and point at a badge and just be like, but memorable in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's a story, isn't it? Like, however it works out, everything's a story.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, I think talk to people, ask people, and just get them to. I've been really heartened actually this last 2 weeks back, because I've had a really rough few weeks. I nearly gave up at one point. I was just so drained and, hit that kind of bottom of that roller coaster people talk about. But like, I put a couple of posts out about, look, I need support with X, Y, Z, like finding sponsors, doing this, people to support us. And I've had offers of people to volunteer with me on this new venture. I've had offers of project management help. I've had people connect me to people that I didn't even know they were connected to in huge organisations like National Trust and universities. And sometimes you've just got to be vulnerable as well and just say, this is what I need. Who can help? And it's, I think that has really picked me up this last week.
Yeah, and that is really powerful, isn't it? Like, is the like, just like you said, like, you don't know who knows who, and just turning up to things, you don't know what you're going to get from it. So I think as well, I think it's important to go into sort of things like that with not necessarily an agenda and just find out what happens from it, because just meeting people is valuable in itself. And it might be months or years down the line where it actually turns into something that you didn't know was going to happen, but it's really valuable.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to say, this is what I'm looking for, because like even from the first networking thing that I went to in Leeds, there was a lady from the council there, and I just straight away, she was like, what do you need right now? And I was like, I'm so glad she asked, because I still felt awkward at that point of saying. I was like, I need premises and I need that. And she put me in touch with the museums and galleries team, and so you've got to just put it forward and just say, and it does feel vulnerable, but it's not saying you don't know what you're doing. It's not saying that you haven't got a clue and you're failing or anything. It is just, sometimes you just need that connection.
Yeah. And that's interesting, actually, because when you say about going from freelancer, small business owner, whatever you're calling yourself, to entrepreneur, I was going to ask if it's changed the way that you show up at all, either sort of in person or on social media. Like, do you think about different things? But I love the fact that you were just talking about there, like, because you'd almost, like, some people, I guess, would go, oh, I'll probably need to be a bit less vulnerable because, I've taken this next step or whatever, but that you're still doing that. Do you think it's has it changed the way you show up in any ways, or has it actually stayed pretty similar?
I mean, I was always quite showing up with vulnerability and stuff anyway, and it's something that a lot of people have responded to about, especially like when I did write the book, and then I've carried on kind of being quite open about self-employment, the ups, the downs, the celebrations, the commiserations, whatever. So I think still show up in a similar way, but the conversations maybe changed.
Yeah.
Because, I am quite often now talking about, taking your business to that next level, and, managing two businesses at once, managing a business where both of the founders have chronic health conditions, all these things that are wrapped up in what's behind the scenes. Because the last thing I want is for people to think I'm one of these shiny success overnight, all just happens and falls into place. And I'm like, no, the real story of being a business owner and an entrepreneur is the struggles, the tears, all. And I'm not going to show up on a video crying, but I'm going to, talk about it after, maybe, and just say like, right, this is the reality. And that's what I did last week. And I had a and I just did a post of like, it was almost like, here's the low, here's the high, here's the low, here's the high, because you've got to take those lows and think, right, okay, but what did that lead to?
Yeah.
And it was all, and when I looked at it, it was all the good stuff that came out of it was because I'd been vulnerable and said, I need this.
Yeah.
Or I'm struggling with X. So somebody I didn't even think of stepped up and helped with whatever that was. And, just even people in my world that get it, because I think it is a whole different level of understanding from running a business. So I have got a couple of other entrepreneurs that, they get it. And when they saw me at my absolute low, really picked me up. And I think it's really important to have that and to have people that understand exactly what level we're working at now and how, even the mechanic we have that does our cars, he dropped our car off the other day and then just went, are you just getting up? And I was like, and he went, oh, I went late. What are you doing? But it's hard, and I think the conversation is still there, but it's a very different level now.
Yeah. But lovely to hear that it's still sort of real at every level, isn't it? Like the
it's
you
so
struggle
real.
with, that you still need help, that like the highs and the lows sort of, like you said, will be different, but also same.
I need more help now than I ever did with the original business, because like I say, I just cracked on with that and I just did it. Whereas now, especially running, like I say, 3 technically, and it being this where I have to do the business development and I have to do all these other things, pitching. I mean, standing up and pitching your business in 2 minutes to win money. It's a whole different level of talking about your business and crafting your message and stuff. So, like I say, I've got a whole network of people that are supporting me, from helping me write that story to helping with pitching skills and presenting to helping with business plans. So there is a huge team behind what I've got out there. And even the bid that I've won for the money, I had a coach who helped me through my entrepreneur program, who got his friend, who's one of the assessors for that funding business, to look at my thing, to review it, and that's why I've ended up winning. Because again, it's been that I need help with this, and they've got help from someone else. And I have a team. That's why I keep saying, when people say like, oh my God, this is amazing what you're going to be doing, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not just me. And there is going to be a team of about 20 of us by the end.
So what advice would you give to somebody that, because I think it's really interesting to sort of talk, like, somebody that might want to go to that next stage to be entrepreneur, because I even sit and listen talking to you, and I find this really interesting all the time. And I did this even in my employed career, where I got to a point, it's like, I don't actually want to be a chief exec. Like, that isn't what sort of makes me happy. And it's that whole success is subjective thing, isn't it? Like, and for me, I don't know if I want to go to entrepreneur level, and it's not about it being right or wrong or anything like that. But it's sort of knowing the ins and outs of it, which I think is why conversations like this are really helpful. But what advice would you give to somebody who, I guess, wants to take that next step, or, you know, like things to think about and things to do, maybe, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, because I think one thing I never realised until I was in it was how much support is out there if you want it. And I'm not talking paid stuff, I'm talking accelerators, partnerships with councils, all kinds of stuff. There's an incredible company called Adventure here who help businesses in Leeds and Bradford. And, you know, they help you with funding and all sorts of things. And you know, really nice team as well. And like when I was in my low point last week, again, that was one of the people that was like, right, here's a free ticket for this event. Come with me. Let's have fun. Let's have a chat. And it was a brilliant event. And yeah, there's people that just really step up and stuff. So I think investigate what's in your region,
Yeah.
because there will be something. They want to help businesses.
Yeah.
They want to help, especially small, medium ones, to become the bigger business. And it doesn't mean you have to hire a team. I'm the same. I don't want to be that kind of role. I don't want to be managing people particularly. I just want to stay the ideas person.
Yeah.
What me and Sally are having to accept at the moment is that for now, I mean, I had a meltdown going, I can't become a teacher again. I can't go back in schools. But like for the short term, I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
But with the view that we will pass it off and we will have a team of
Yeah.
associates that will do it. So it is that short-term sacrifice as well.
Yeah.
But there are so many people that are out there to help you do it and do it as quick as you can.
Yeah.
So yeah, just start Googling it. And
yeah. And it's weighing up whether it's it's weighing up the pros and cons of it, isn't it, as well? Like you said, like it's a short-term sacrifice and that's worth it for a little while, but there's no better driver than knowing what you don't want to go back to. So yeah,
absolutely.
Just a couple of questions that I always like to end on, and you have touched on this a little bit earlier. But I know you were saying, you know, like you were quite used to being vulnerable in your business and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But what helps you show up in your business, and what would, like, whether that be on social media or coming on podcasts or going to networking events, etc., what helps you show up, and what advice would you give to someone who wants to do the same but might be struggling with it a little bit?
I think for me, it has been finding the things that I love. And I know that's a bit of a cliche, and people say, oh, you can't possibly love everything in your business. And no, I can't. Don't get me wrong. I hate, you know, accounting and doing my expenses and all that kind of side of things. But like, as I always say to someone, if 70% of your time is stuff you love, that's great. And I've definitely found something where probably 85% is the stuff I love. So the fact that I can be a children's book illustrator, and I can do these immersive workshops and play with AI and AR and sew, and just see kids getting excited about helping the planet and nature, and all of that is just, and it's different every day. Every single day in my business is different. So I think that is what helps me then show up, even though we haven't done very well recently. We've totally fell off socials for a while we've been developing all this, but you know, I'm just starting to do it again. But I think it's just, it's that moment when you see kids engage with stuff as well, and the joy and the, you know, that they can hold a koala in the hand with this AR app I've got and stuff like that. It's just something totally different. So that fuels me for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right, you're never going to love 100 in anything in life, not just in your business. It's like parenting, isn't it? I don't love 100%. I wouldn't change my kids. Like, bits of it are hard. So yeah, I really like that. And also, I think, you know, I love that you said that you like the honesty and sort of you falling off the wagon with the socials a bit, because it's giving yourself this, isn't it? That, you know, sometimes I've been a bit like that with my emails recently, and balls drop, but you just pick them back up again at a point that you're ready to do.
Well, that's it. And I'm, you know, with this funding that's coming in, I'm going to be able to hire a VA and various things. So it's like, you know, I know it will pick up again, and I know I needed to do it probably a while back. But at the same time, we didn't have capacity. Sometimes something's got to go. And funnily enough, like, you know, all this about, you must post every day and all of this. I've found that my engagement on LinkedIn has gone up when I've posted less. Because when I do post, I've got something to say. Something that's resonating, something that's new, rather than just, you know, random chat and whatever. My engagement's gone through the roof. I think LinkedIn's a bit like, what's going on?
And I am a big advocate of not posting for the sake of it, because it has to be. I put a post out about that on mine the other day, actually, the question I asked myself, and it's always why does it matter and who cares? And if you can't answer those two questions, don't post it, because I think sometimes people will just post so that they've posted something. And like you said, it's sort of counterproductive, really, if it's a pointless post. So I love that. Final question before you let people know sort of where they can find you and all that kind of stuff. What advice would you go back and give to Helen of a few years ago, sort of your yourself in business? If you could go back from what you've learned now, what advice would you go back and give? Or even from pre-January Helen to now?
Yeah, that's such a difficult question, actually, because when I started my business, I was chronically unconfident. I was, I'd had a real rough time in employment. They'd ripped me apart. So I'd spent a lot of time building myself back up. So I think I'd probably go back to that point, or even before they got me to that point, saying go self-employed. It's good. You can make a living of it. And I think listen to those people that were saying to me, well, maybe you should give it a try. And me going, no, I can't. Go back to there and go, just do it.
I was just going to say, it's a bit back to what we said earlier, wasn't it? It's like, you've just got to try, because the worst that's going to happen is it doesn't work and you try something else. So
and I couldn't possibly have been as unhappy as I was in that job. So it was just that fear of the money, because it was secure money. And
and that'll be relatable to pretty much anybody doing that kind of stuff. So amazing. And where can people come and find you? Where do you hang out most? Is it LinkedIn, on socials? Where can people find you?
I'm generally always on LinkedIn. But if you go on UnlikelyGenius.com or BeTheFuture.earth, all our social links are on there anyway. And there are two main hubs, and there will be exciting stuff coming soon from Be The Future Immersed. UK branch.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Show Up and Be Heard. But please don't go without telling me your name. I genuinely love meeting new people and making new connections. So if you don't already, I'd love it if you'd come find me on Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook and drop me a message to say hello and let me know what you thought of the episode. The link to all my socials are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode or found it useful, then I'd really appreciate it if you could take just a few minutes to give it a review on whatever platform you are listening on, because every one I get really does make me do a little squeal and a big happy dance. Finally, more than anything else, please always remember, realising that you're not actually meant to do this stuff alone is the first step to making it easier. So I'll see you next time.